Okay, in this video, I'm going to take the previous video and go just a little bit further with it. So it's going to be really, really similar to the previous video, except I'm going to start looking at how could we possibly solve this with a middleware approach or some other approach so we're not duplicating our code so much. So what I mean by that code duplication comment is that you saw that in each of the routes or each of the handler functions that we were creating, each of them started off the exact same way. If you're not authenticated, then send this response. And if you're not authenticated, send that response right there. If you're not authenticated, do that, and so on right there. So what I want to do is try to look at a way to get rid of that duplication of code. So what we'll find in this code here is everything is the same. The formatting might be a little bit different. So all of that code is the same. The is authenticated function, I have two of those, and this was the one we looked at, the previous one. Otherwise, they are the same. Then let's come down to the routes here. So there's make routes, which you've seen before. That's the public health route, not worried about that. What I did in this code here was for each of the other routes that we have now that require authentication, I took kind of a baby step and I said, what if we have the typical value here, then we have our route, and then we have the handler right there. And then what if we just wrap the rest of the code inside of an authentication mechanism? So what I mean by that is, what if this code here was all wrapped with our authentication function? So that's what I did. So it's a little bit less duplication of code than the previous one. So now you see with auth, and with auth for all of our routes that require authentication. So now we take a look at that with auth function right there. And you can see I'm taking in the handler. And the handler is interesting. It is a function that transforms a request into a ZIO value right here. So this is the parameter that I'm taking in. I'm giving it this name handler. And what I'm returning is also interesting. I'm returning the exact same function that I'm getting in. So I'm returning a function that transforms a request into a ZIO value. So if you haven't seen a function that returns a function before, or you haven't seen a good example of this, I think this is a pretty good real-world example of returning a function from another function. And then the body of the function here is just a matter of saying, you know, what I want to do is reformat that actually. What I want to do is say, I'm going to take a request as input and I want to transform that request. That's our usual transformation symbol right there. I want to transform that request into a ZIO value over here. And now you'll see the same code that we had before. If you are not authenticated, then I'm going to send you this unauthorized status and then add in that header right there. That's exactly what I did before. Otherwise, if you are authenticated, then I'm going to call the handler function that's passed in right here. I'm going to pass the request into that handler function, and then the return value from our handler is going to be the ZIO value right here. So again, this is just a baby step of working with this. I wanted to go a little bit further, but I also wanted to try to keep the code readable and something that we could work with. And then it turns out that if you want to try to take the next step, which for me was going to be turning this code into middleware, it turns out that middleware is already built into ZIO HTTP, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate in the next video. So in this video, I'm not even going to show these routes. I'm not going to do all the usual curl commands. I'll let you go ahead and do all that yourself. What you'll need to know for that is that the package here is HTTP 112a, and then the object name is auth helper function. So that is going to be this one right here. And then these are some of the curl commands that you can use to test this code, in addition to testing it with your web browser. So if you're interested, go ahead and start working with that code. And as always, I hope this has been helpful.